Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sisters Sit Down State of Emergency series.
We are in a state of disaster, and my cup contains profanity. So, just a warning.
Yeah.
We are talking about the snow day here in Texas, and since we are from Texas, we're going to be a little bit uh, general when we talk about where we are. So, I'm in Central Texas in a suburb, and Jacqueline,
I'm more in the
South
south,
South Central, south
yeah,
of Central, just a little bit south of Central. Not
along,
really South Texas, but
along the coast,
south,
south. I think it's considered south.
yeah,
It's like San Antonio
near the.
town is considered south, so it's kind of a lot.
Okay, yeah. So somewhat southern. Are you suburban or are you pretty central to this, close to the city?
I'm pretty close to the city, but we are very, very close to the coast. So,
Okay, it's close to the city, close to the coast, and I am not too far from the main city in our little suburban town. I'm pretty close to downtown. It's a pretty cute little suburban town, fast growing, super fast growing, and we've been without power. Our whole city was without power last night. I thought at first it was just our neighborhood because we saw neighborhoods going without power. But let's say where it all started. Okay, so where it all started was when we were filming our episode of Sister Sit Down on Valentine's Day, which was Sunday, February 14th. And we were filming and we about the Indian farmers protest, and we got cut off because Jacqueline's internet went down. And so we
every
will have to continue, we'll have to finish that another day.
mm-hmm.
So tell me what happened when we lost you, Jacqueline. For me, I had a Valentine. I just like went and had Valentine's Day with my husband. We had candy and we sang songs. We picked YouTube songs that had to do. We felt like we're Valentines. It was fun, fun little playlist. We should,
So as soon as my power went out, I went to the other room and David and I just kind of started looking for flashlights, which we were only able to find one that had batteries because the kids enjoy playing with them. So now we know that kids can't play with flashlights because we need them sometimes. Luckily, my phone had power. I had been charging it while we were talking. So as soon as the lights went out, I had my phone for flashlight and we found another flashlight. David has like this little portable battery and we have these like filming lights that he plugged into it and we kind of use that to light up the room. I decided because it was still Valentine's Day to make myself a charcuterie board because I couldn't cook myself anything and actually had a bottle of champagne in the fridge. So I popped open a bottle of champagne. I got out some candles. I lit a candle and then I finally used my watercolors that you got me for my birthday.
awesome. I want to see what you made.
It wasn't much, but I was like, I'm just gonna sit here. I'm bored. I'm gonna sit here and paint. So I did do that, and that was cool. And I
That
just
is so
kind of,
cool.
yeah, I kind of made the an evening of it, but then, it was a few hours past because that was like 9:30 on Sunday. And then probably went to bed about around midnight and we still didn't have power. And David and I were realizing like it's gonna get really cold in here. So we'd gathered every single blanket in the entire house and had the kids sleep in the room with us. So we all stayed warm. We had the kids huddled together underneath like 10 blankets, and David and I had a bunch of blankets too. And then the next morning we woke up, and that's when we were kind of like, okay, the power is still out. I just, I don't know. We have like snowsuits for the kids because we went to Colorado recently and we put their little snowsuits on and they were running around the house with like two pairs of socks and snowsuits and hats and sweaters and all that. So it was kind of weird.
Did you take pictures of them?
No, I guess I should have, but we were like trying not to use our phones too much.
Of
Just
course not.
'cause-
Of course. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I wish I had documented it a little bit better. I was kind of stressed in the house. It got to around 30 degrees, I would say, at one point. And the only reason I say that is because there is another lady who was on Facebook saying that she lives in there's a lady
Oh,
who lives in our area, and I was on Facebook and I saw her saying that her house had reached the temperatures of 33 degrees, and we're in a south or a north facing apartment, so our apartment is on the first floor. It doesn't get any sunlight at all, so it's nice to conserve energy. But then when like it's winter, it's like, oh, we were freezing. We put our milk, our eggs, our meat, our we had just bought some like fish at the store, and so we put everything outside.
that was so smart. We should have done that. So
It's it worked too. It worked.
some of our stuff has gone bad. We might look at our stuff. We should do that as soon as we get off this show. We're gonna do that. We
Yeah,
haven't. Why didn't we think of that? I remember seeing that when I was in Baltimore.
yeah,
I think we were too stressed and putting
yeah. I think
food in our the food in my refrigerator or freezer. It just wasn't something. I think I wasn't. I think I was in denial. Like, is
we
it?
just weren't too worried about it.
And
Yeah,
we were just too cold, and I was
yeah,
focused on my pets. So you have two toddlers. I
yeah,
have three cats and a dog, and the cat is a senior cat, and the dog is a senior dog, and
yeah.
that's been a whole event in and of itself. Well, our tea, I'm drinking ginger and lemon.
And
Big old both
I
blend.
am drinking the spring blend of Starbucks coffee with the Cocoa Pebbles creamer.
The Coco's Pebbles, which is what you were drinking in the video that got interrupted on
Yeah.
Valentine's Day by a power outage. So I'll talk about when my power went out in a second. I'd like you to get your watercolors that you did. And if you have the lights that you use, grab those. And I'm going to grab the lights that I use, my props, and show them. And I want to get my charger to make sure that my phone's charged just in case, because we might lose power while we're filming.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Let
be
me grab
right
the
back. You had no power, and you guys just had a night. Did you call anyone else to tell them about your lack of power?
um no, no, I didn't tell anybody. Until the next day is when I called my mom and I told her about it because it had already been over 12 hours and she didn't know. So I thought I would tell her. And then I started telling David that maybe we should go to a hotel. And so that's when we decided to do that. And so I actually asked my mom to
So
make the reservation because I was having trouble getting internet signal and I was afraid my phone was going to die. So I called her and I was like, can you find the nearest hotel that, has power and see if they have a room for us? And so she called me back and she's like, I found a place and I already made you the reservation. And so we drove over there. And by the time that we went, the roads were not icy because it had warmed up a bit, but it was still freezing and the house was so cold. And when we got to the hotel, it was just really nice to be in a warm room again.
so the hotel had power. So your whole town hadn't lost power. Just did you see? Was it just your neighborhood? Like when you were driving to the hotel, did you see other neighborhoods with
There's,
power?
yeah,
So at that time, it was just your neighborhood.
yep, just our neighborhood. The whole, it's like they call it the South Side area was out of power, and the other areas, I would say like the area where the mall is at, which is basically where the hotel was, a lot closer to the business area and the hub of the city. That area never lost power, of course.
Poor
Target
hearts.
was open through all of it. Target was open.
Well, HEBs are closed now. A lot of
Yeah.
HEBs got closed down, which surprised me. And for anyone not in Texas, HEB is just the best. It's one of the, it is among the top like 20 things, at least, probably even top 10 best things about living in Texas.
Yeah.
And we as progressives find a lot of things about living in Texas we don't love, but HEB
I
ain't
would
one of
put
them.
it on my top 5 list of
Probably. I need more time to think about it. Wildflowers. I love the wildflowers, and those are in my top 5 easy. That I feel like top wildflowers might be number one.
wildflowers are quite magical, but even in the area that I live in, we don't really even get them much. So I'd have to go further up
We
north
get
to
them.
get to experience but where you are, you get them yearly, and it's just so like nice to get that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to sprinkle those seeds in my yard and just have a yard full of them. I
yeah,
think
that
that
would
would.
be lovely. Yes.
So that was your experience. Are you back home? It looks like you're back home.
I am. We finally
And
got power yesterday around 11:30, and that was around 37 hours for us, no power.
has it cut off since then?
No, it hasn't, not at all.
I wonder if we should turn our oven off. We turned it on to heat up the downstairs. I'm going to go ask Jonathan if he thinks we should turn it off, or is it safe because we're both upstairs.
So I just did this. It's not all that special, but
No, that's cool though because you just got the kit and that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be experimenting with them.
yeah, and that's what I did. I used all the brushes that you sent me because I was just wanting to see how the different strokes
So
work. And I played with only two colors, and I
I'm
tried
gonna
to do like
send
an
you.
ombre. And I really like it. The colors are very pigmented. You don't
Yes,
need that much, and it
I
just
got.
it paints the whole page. It's so nice.
Oh, the lights. What lights did you use?
I used this flashlight. It was one of my lights that we had, and then of course the light on my phone. And then we also have this battery, which I think it's yeah, it has battery right now. So we have this battery, and you press the button, and it has a USB plug-in, so you can charge your phone, or you can plug something in. So we plugged in this light actually, and it's pretty bright.
Oh, that's one of the ones that you use for
Yeah,
filming, for lighting for
one
your
of the
filming.
filming lights that we have in it. The little screen fell off, but it's one of our filming lights, and you can adjust it. But this will literally light up the entire room, and it's really nice. Like, I didn't realize how in handy this would come, but
For a
filming
power
equipment,
outage.
filming equipment came in handy.
Y'all were so clever. So clever. Okay, tell me the few extra things of your story, and then I'll tell you my story, and then we'll talk politics maybe a little. We might not get to politics. This might
Well,
just be what we're going through.
this is
But we want to talk about the politics too.
yeah, we
Okay,
do. We do. Um, well, we are also trying to move. We were supposed to move on Saturday, but because of all of this, now we were packing the past few days. So yes, we did stay in a hotel, but during the day we were here packing, and then at night I went to the hotel, and then we actually got a hotel a second night, and then our lights came back on. So we didn't have to stay at the hotel, but we had the hotel. It's just like, oh well. But then we were also trying to get everything set up today to move, and we aren't able to get renter's insurance right now because there's a storm. And also, we couldn't get lights until Monday. So we've had to also move our moving date till Monday, which is fine because we had told the apartment here that we weren't going to be out till Tuesday. But the other apartment we had to change the move-in date, and we've also David had to ask for a day off of work, and he's already missed all this week, so he's going to have all this week with no pay because all of the refineries here have basically shut down. So kind of crazy.
so he's missing work not because of the move, but because work shut down.
Well, right now he's missing work because of the storm. Yeah. And on Monday he's got to miss again because we had to move our move because of the storm. So the storm has just kind of moved a lot of things around for us. But I mean, it could
So
be worse. So
what's this storm like where you are?
it wasn't that bad. It's already passed now. It was warmer today than it had been the past few days.
What was the temperature today?
Um, I don't know, probably still in like the 30s or the 40s.
Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah, right now it's 39 degrees.
I'm
So,
gonna see what it is here today too.
and in the
I think
morning it'll
we're
be 34 degrees. So,
Did it rain? Did it snow? Was there ice? Tell me what happened.
Yeah, it rained a lot. There was ice, there was a little bit of snow, but not enough for it to like really even cover the ground, you know, and then it just immediately turned to ice. And all of the grass was covered in ice. The sidewalk was covered in ice. There was ice and along the pavement too. On Monday, like Sunday night going into Monday is when it was really bad, and then the morning was pretty bad. And they said that there had been accidents, and I kept hearing, like, we live kind of close to the hospitals. There's two hospitals really close to us, so we kept hearing sirens, and like you'd hear a police siren, and then you'd also hear like a fire truck going by, and you'd hear an ambulance, and you're like, dang, another car accident. So with us without power, it honestly felt like, have you seen the movie Day After Tomorrow?
I know I have. Oh yeah, it's like where they're all trying to head south to where his father's a scientist or something, right? In New
Yeah,
York
yeah.
lights.
It's yeah.
Everything.
And then
Yeah.
it's a blizzard. It's like the ice age, and there
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's super cool. It felt like, you know, it was cold, like we'd had no power. And then you just hear the sirens. It really felt like we can't go outside. Like we can't, the streets are not safe. There is nothing near us for us to get food. Like the closest thing is a gas station, and David was like, I'm gonna walk to the gas, and it would be like a 15-minute walk for him maybe, but he was gonna walk to the gas station and go get milk and eggs so we could like eat something, or not eggs, but he was gonna get milk and cereal and peanut butter, bread, whatever he could that we could eat, because we didn't realize this was going to happen. We didn't realize we were going to go without power. We were just planning to stay home, you know. The roads are going to be bad. We didn't realize the power was going to be out for 37 hours.
I don't think anybody realized that. And then I sort of wonder what kind of, yeah.
And I think that that falls on the leadership, because they did tell us, if you go back last week before all of this happened, there were articles saying that there would be outages, but not to worry, it would only be from 30 minutes to an hour, and it would be rotating outages and this and that, and that they got it covered. Like when you hear 30 minutes to an hour, oh, like no big deal, like 30 minutes to an hour, I'll just sit in the dark for an hour, whatever. But then, the lights go out for 37 hours. I saw someone on Facebook say they were without power for 55 hours straight. Like, how do you do that? How do you let people be in like record breaking temperatures? These are freezing temperatures that people here are not used to. People weren't prepared, and then they didn't prepare us. They didn't tell us, like, hey, you guys, be sure to have water, be sure to have food, go buy candles, be sure that you have batteries. Like, we didn't even have batteries for our flashlights because we weren't expecting this. During hurricane season, I got everything. I have canned foods, I have candles, I have batteries. I'm always ready because we live in a coast city and there's hurricanes a lot. But for
I
this,
think
I
that
wasn't ready.
I think for Texans now, from now on, when Texans see the words polar vortex,
Yeah,
think
we're
hurricane
yeah, we're gonna think
and just
hurricane
plan
season.
for that.
Hurricane, but cold. It's worse than a hurricane because it's cold.
It's true, it's cold. And you don't have to board up your windows, though.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, hurricane food prep and make sure you have basically prep. And yeah, we're definitely going to be stocking up with some batteries and things like that. After our sit down thing, I uploaded the video and went downstairs and hung out with Jonathan a little bit. And once the video uploaded, I came up here and turned off my computer and told Jonathan to turn off his computer too, because if your power went out, ours might go out too. And we wanted to make sure our computers are unplugged in case of a power outage. I have a friend who lost their power on Thursday, and their power got cut off on Thursday. They got a hotel room, and by the time they were checked into the hotel, their power came back on. So I was expecting something of that level to
Mhm.
happen, like a few hours, maybe a day, and a night, an afternoon, I don't know, half a day even. Not what we got. I wasn't prepared for that at all. And then on top of that, we lost water. So,
So what time did your power go out?
so this, it was, we'd been having our Valentine's Day singing and having a good time and drinking and eating the candy that Jonathan got us from Lofty Pursuits and public displays of confection, which I got a text from the city that said that they were going to be doing rolling blackouts. Yeah, or the state. So I got a text from the state, I think. It says due to the record electric demand, Texas Electric Grid Operator is directing rotating outages to protect electric grid reliability. Okay. So basically I'm getting a message saying this is after they cut your power off. This is at 2:15 a.m. on Sunday night, February 14th, 2:15 in the morning. I was still up and I was on Facebook and I was looking at my neighborhood group and some of them were losing their power. And I was paying attention to that and I was like, okay. So I read on outages typically 40 minutes or less. Length and frequency depend on severity of event. Prepare for possible power interruptions due to mandated rotating outages. Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
40 minutes out, and then it'll be back on. Cool, I can deal with that. And I was like, and my power's not out, so I'm just gonna, but then I got another message somewhere else saying, please unplug all of your things that don't need to be plugged in. And I was like, okay, I'll do that, and this would have been cool. We should have all been doing that much earlier. Like these messages were 2:15 in the morning. A lot of people are already asleep.
Yeah.
And because it's Sunday. So I ran around and I started unplugging unnecessary things. And then my power went out around 2:15, between 2 and 3. Shortly, hold on. Okay, I was scratching my eye. Shortly after receiving that message, my power went out. And I didn't prepare as well as you did. I didn't charge my phone or anything.
Well,
My iPad was charged.
A lucky thing that my phone was charged. It was just pure luck. David's phone was dead.
Yeah, my phone wasn't dead. It had like 50% charge, but my iPad was charged. It was fully charged. And it's been really good about holding a charge, but my phone has been really bad about holding a charge. So my phone was not dead. When I woke up in the morning, there was still power in it. So I got everything together. I got the cat's one of my cats sleeps in her own room. She needs to sleep in her own room because she has renal failure and she's really old. Probably doesn't have a lot of time left with me. She's so cute. I'll put a picture here. Insert picture here. A little bee. And she's very old, like 20 maybe, with renal failure. And she does pee everywhere and she has peed on me. So she sleeps in her own room. And she has her own bed. It's covered in pads and pee pads, and it's a nice little room. It's a nice little setup, but she gets lonely in there. And took care of, basically got up, came up and got in bed because I'm like, if the power's out, I guess it's time for bed. I mean, it was 3 a.m. after all, but I'm sitting in bed playing video games on my iPad because I'm a night owl. I'm not ready to go to sleep yet. And when I drink, and I only had a couple of drinks, we had a couple glasses of wine to celebrate Valentine's Day, but alcohol sort of wakes me up. So I'm like, I'm awake. It's 3, the power's out, but I'm good. And I used these candles. Well, I used this flashlight to help me see my way up the stairs. I took it to the top of the stairs and shine. It's really great. It lit up the whole stairway. To carry my cat up the stairs and put her up, I have to carry her up and carry her down. She can walk, but she's got arthritis and some problems with her hips. So I use this flashlight, which we keep under our sink. And we also have these candles. I don't think I got them out that night though. We've been using them ever since.
I put one in the bathroom just so if the kids had to go to the bathroom, they had that in there.
I have there's one in my bathroom. We have a bunch of these, a ridiculous number of these, because we use them in our wedding. So we kept them all. So every wedding table had at least one. So some of them had like three. Most of them had 3 or 4 candles, just different 3 candles, and then sometimes little tea lights. So we had a bunch of different sizes, little squares. So we had them on like 10, 3 on 10. So we've got 30, about 30 of these in all sizes. So they're all over our house. And some of them we kept out, but I kept the others I just keep them in a box. But these are pretty old. They're 3 years old. I think we got married 3 years ago, and we haven't refilled the batteries, and we use them every time our power goes out. Power's gone out before, but just never this long. So I've been like, don't use them until it's absolutely dark, and we have to, because I've heard that some people are going until Friday without power. So after so I've been like trying to be careful because we don't have a lot of batteries to replace if they need to be replaced. And then I went looking around. I was like, I know we bought this other lantern and I couldn't find it. So Sunday, Monday, I've been having a hard time keeping track of the days too.
Yeah.
Monday morning, Dad's texted me, my sis Dawn's texted me. Um, a couple of I think that's it. And I responded to them both and let them know that we had no power and my phone was gonna die. And then I asked my mom, I said, Mom, how are you? I wanted to check on my mom. And then my phone died. So I'm like, okay. And for some reason, I guess our house was cold. It was really cold. But I didn't want to go outside. I told myself, I'm like, I want to go play in the snow, but playing in the snow is only fun when you can come back inside and warm up. So, before this happened, the Saturday night, the neighborhood next to me, their power went out because the ice had weighed down on their power line. And I guess they got really heavy with ice and their power line broke. And I believe their power was restored, I think, the next day, but I don't know. Poor guys, they might have been out even longer. Okay, so Valentine's Day, I get this text. I just take up my cat, use this flashlight to get us upstairs, and put the cat in her room. Get in my room. I'm playing my video game in the dark because the electricity's out, but I'm a night owl. And then the power came back on, and the heat kicked back on, and so it was about 30 minutes. I thought, okay, well, that was the rolling blackout, and now I've got to go get out of bed and go turn off all the lights. And so I did that. And then the next morning I wake up and there are texts from Dad and Mom and my sister, our other sister. And I let them all know I'm fine, but I have no power and that my phone's about to die. So don't worry if you don't hear from me because my phone's going to die. And then it died. And I reached out to my mom, but she didn't respond to my, I said, hey, Mom, are you okay? And then my phone died. This is Monday. So what did we do? It's like we had no internet. It wouldn't work on my phone. It wouldn't work on Jonathan's iPad, so no internet. Both of our phones were dead. He'd already contacted his work, and they said work's closed. My college where I work is closed until, well, at that time they were closed until Tuesday. Now they're closed until Sunday, which is good because because to try to do work this week, I think for any of us, is going to be a little rough. So, what did we do Monday? What is today? Even Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Wednesday, the day of relief. We finally got power back today. Last night, actually. We kicked on last night. So, last night was Tuesday. We had our water dripping. So Monday was okay. So Sunday wasn't the worst night. Sunday it got cold. I went out to my car. And the Monday was the worst night. Mondays where I did go out to my car that night and I was like, oh, I should have done this much earlier because I have heated car seats and I turned the heater on and I'm like, it's warm in here. And I've been listening to NPR, so I'm getting a little bit of news of the outside world, but nothing about what's going on with Texas and the power grid. Not that night. and I charge our phones. And the first thing I see is a message from dad saying, charge your phone in your car. And he'd sent it earlier in the morning, but now it's like 10 o'clock at night. I was like, oh, I am now. And nothing from mom, nothing from mom. So I asked my sister, hey, have you heard from mom? And I managed to charge our phones a little bit. It took a while. And Jonathan joined me and we sat in the heat. And for some reason, my phone died the next morning. I thought I turned it off and maybe I didn't, but by the next morning, mine was dead. Jonathan was able to deal with work stuff. Um, and then I was really worried about Bianca, my cat, my old cat. And rightly so. I made her a fortress in her room and I tried to get her to go in there. I like with a laundry basket, made her a laundry basket fortress, put a bunch of blankets in and put a blanket over it, and a sweater that I wear, I put it in there. And then I took a cat carrier and put that on the floor and covered that up too, just hoping she'd go into either one of those if she got cold. Um, and then at this point, it's also the coldest night, right, that we're gonna have because we know we're supposed to get to 0 degrees outside. But our water stops running too. So we were dripping steadily to keep our pipes from freezing over. Okay, because our city's water plant lost power, they lost water and they told everyone to stock up. They're like, everyone get enough water for 3 days for every member of your household, but do it by collecting your drip. They should have just said, everyone collect your drip. They should have said that. Everyone didn't collect, I'm sure of it. Everyone turned their water on full blast and filled up gallons and gallons, right? I think that's what happened because I think that if everyone had just collected their drips, we would have been able to drip all night, but they didn't. And the water stopped running. And we're like, great, now we can't drip it to protect our pipes. So that is awful, just awful. We've been protecting our pipes and now we're just hoping that they don't burst. We have no water. We still have no water. And that happened on Monday and it's Wednesday. They say that when they do get it turned back on, we will be on boil alert. So, yeah. So we're like, well, lucky for us, there's snow everywhere. So we've been melting snow. I'm going to show you pictures of that in a minute. I took a bunch of pictures. And in the middle of the night, Monday night, I kept waking up to check on my Bianca, my senior cat. And she was rolled up in a ball, not in any of the shelters I built for her. So I went and got those thermacare things, you know, that you peel them off and they create heat. I use them for my cramps or if I have a backache. I took 3 of them and just like stuck them inside a pillowcase and rolled that up and pushed that up against her. And then I pulled a towel and pushed that against her other side. And then I went back to bed and I was just hoping she'd be warm enough. I was so worried about her and she wasn't. She got really cold. She seemed okay when I checked on her then, but by the morning, when Jonathan finally brought her downstairs to where she likes to hang out, she was shivering. She was just like trembling. So he grabbed her and held her, and I heard her meowing, so I had to get out of bed. And when I got down there, he was sitting in the chair holding her and getting her warm, and she wasn't shivering anymore. She was warm. So I sat down and started chit-chatting with him. And then when I got up to go, I don't know, get tea or something for the morning, I came back and I saw the senior dog we have, Cheska. She was sitting in a place where neither one of us could see her on her little doggy bed. And she was trembling. And I'm like, oh, poor baby. And she had probably, because she'd just gone outside, because she has to go out in the snow and she's been so confused by the snow and having to go. So I grabbed her and pushed her into a sunbeam on her bed and put a blanket over her and started rubbing on her. And I put another blanket over her and just rubbing on her, and the sunbeam rubbing on her. And she finally stopped trembling. And then she went down. And then I went and got her a little dog. She has a little stuffed animal dog she loves. And I went and got that and put it by her, put it under her. And she, then for like the next hour or so, she was just sitting there snoring with her little paw on the dog, and her doggy pillow. It's like her stuffed animal dog, but she had her head in her paw, and she's just in the sunbeam, just like happy as can be, and under two blankets. Like, God, good, taken care of.
We're
And my poor
good.
other senior, though, I'm like, oh no. So then the second night, we
And
finally,
Monica just refuses to go in the little shelters you made her.
right. So we
That's
decide,
frustrating.
huh?
I said I could imagine that that was frustrating for you, seeing her be cold and and she's just not going in there. She's just like, "No, I don't want to go in there."
Yeah. And so the other cats spent the whole day really annoyed with us, but the senior dog and the senior cat weren't annoyed. They were just cold and they'd been
Yeah.
chilled. And so Jonathan and I together came up with the idea. This was our one bright idea, to start filling mason jars with the snow that we were boiling and use them as heat trans. And I mentioned that in the Game of Thrones, that's how the Starks keep their house warm in the books. If you, the first book, they mentioned that the Starks in Winterfell, they keep it warm by running hot water through the walls. And so we're like, well, that's how we're going to keep our pets warm. So where my Bianca was sitting, I shoved hot mason jars full of heated snow on either side of her under the blanket so that she had that warmth. And I put that around the other cat too. And then when we went to bed at night, and then I went and found my water bottle that I have, because the night before I was like, I'm missing my heating pad. So I found my water bottle and we filled that up with hot snow, and we filled a bunch of mason jars because I had saved a bunch because I'm trying to be an art teacher and I wanted to use them in art class for water, dipping your brushes in. So we'd save them all, and I said, keep the lids because I don't know, you might need the lids, so keep the lids. So we were able to fill up a bunch of mason jars, and I created this area in the bathroom, and I'll show you pictures. I don't know if I should show pictures or talk, but we created a space in the bathroom for her to sleep. And we also had a big wine thing, gallon glass jar, empty wine bottle. So we filled that up with hot water too. And we put all of that in the bathroom, which is a smaller space, and put her towels in there and filled it up with heated mason jars and made her sleep in there, except she escaped, but fortunately did not pee on us. She has peed on me before, and we don't have running water. So if she peed on us, all our blankets, because we slept under like every blanket we have in the house, all our blankets would have cat pee on them. So would we, and we couldn't shower and we couldn't wash them. So that, thank goodness that didn't happen. She didn't do that. She went down to her hutch, and where she likes to sleep, she sleeps in our hutch, which is our nicest piece of furniture, and she was there. So thankfully that. um, and then I guess that brings us to today, and eventually today we got our power back last night. You know what? I'm again having time passage awareness. Okay. We got our power back, but
So
I left her in the bathroom anyway, because even though we had our power back, our house was still really cold.
yeah, it took a
And
long time for our house to warm up too.
yeah, I put the mason jars under my bed, the bed. I put a mason jar like on the top, in the middle, and then at the foot. They were full of hot water, and put the blanket over that. And I put my pajamas around that. So when I got in bed, it was nice and warm. And I also tucked mason jars in the corners of Cheska's bed, in every corner of her bed. So she had that warmth all around her. And I put two blankets all around her to keep her warm. And then just, after Jonathan fell asleep and before I did, his little side lamp came on and all the lights came on. And I did think, I didn't want to put her in her room because her room is still freezing. But When I was in my car charging my battery, it said 15 degrees, and that was the night before last night. Last night, it supposedly went down to 0. I don't know. I didn't check, but I think it went down to 0. So it got way too cold in her room. So I didn't put her back in there. But by the time she escaped, the house was warm enough that she was fine where she was. And I put her in her room at that point because at that point her room was also warm enough. And now
Yeah.
our house is very warm and we've had the oven on, but I'll show you some pictures.
And then
This,
after going that long without the electricity, when the electricity comes on, you're like not sure you want to trust it. And then I had several scares yesterday where the kids would turn off a light on me, and then I thought that the lights were going out. Just like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, what's that? I felt a little traumatized for a little while.
we started a drinking game. We didn't actually drink because we thought of it too late, but every time one of us tries to flip on a light switch or flip one off, that we have to take a drink. So, which was quite a lot because we
Yeah,
were
I
always
caught
trying to
it.
switch on the switches.
Yeah,
So
I caught
this
myself
is a
doing it too
friend.
quite a bit.
You what?
I caught
What
myself
did
doing it quite a bit.
this is a friend boiling snow,
That's
um,
awesome.
a little bit north of where I live in a different suburban city. This is outside our house, my neighbor's truck filled with snow. This is the room, the bathroom, one corner. We put towels in both corners and we put mason jars. If you can see that kind of little area underneath, there was a mason jar there. And in the corner was a big wine bottle full of hot water. So we had this whole thing. And we did the same thing on the other side of the countertop and put her stairs in there so she could get up and down if she wanted to, but she got out. She just used it to escape. This is so I found my rice heating bag, and those we were keeping the mason jars warm by keeping that griddle in the middle warm and melting ice and snow from outside. There's the mason jars and the wine bottle that we used, and we were using melted snow to flush our toilets and melted snow to wash our dishes and melted snow to heat up mason jars. But now we don't need to heat up the mason jars, but it is nice to have warm water to wash my hands and wash the dishes with.
Mhm.
So and if our power goes out again, we'll have those. So we do have plenty of drinking water. Fortunately, we're well stocked up on drinking water. We just don't want to use our drinking water for everything. So that's what it looks like outside in my neighborhood today. This is from today. It was prettier yesterday because the snow wasn't frozen over, but it rained last night, and so the snow is all frozen. This
That's
is the
cool.
rose bush in front of my house.
It's so pretty, but how you said earlier, it's not fun when you can't go inside and get warm.
Well, I took these today. I
Yeah.
have been, yeah, because I can come back inside and get warm. So I took these today. So I don't really have any pretty pictures of yesterday because it's not fun.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
so these are from today. That is pretty, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since we don't have running water, we went ahead and just wrapped the faucets outside, but then it rained on them and now they're frozen. So there's icicles dripping off the Ziploc bags anyway. He did cover them with Ziploc bags. So there's icicle. It's it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We should have done our homework and looked into like really what the polar vortex was going to bring. I checked the weather the first time I saw the news of the polar vortex. I checked the weather and it wasn't the same as what it was when I checked it closer. Like it was predicting my cold, like 20s maybe. And then I checked closer to the actual event, like on Friday, and it was like, it's going to be 0 degrees on Monday. I'm like, what? The last time I checked out, that was the lowest it's going to get was like 29, which is still cold, but 0?
Yeah.
In Texans, for
Very big
us,
difference.
in Texas, 20 degrees is like as cold as we're used to coping with.
Well, People are literally walking on sidewalks, slipping and falling and dying because we don't even know how to walk on ice. We don't know how to tell if it's safe or not to even walk on the sidewalk because it's just not something we're used to. Right outside of our apartment, because on our side of the apartment, like I said, we don't get any sunlight. So the entire sidewalk was just icy. We had to, David told us, like, when you go outside, just walk on this on the grass. Don't walk on the sidewalk because it was all just a sleet of ice.
When I went out today, I was careful to just walk where the snow was, even though the snow is covered in a sheet of ice right now. It's kind of neat because when I was scooping up snow, I scooped up a sheet of ice, and then underneath the ice it was powdery snow.
Mhm.
Um, so it's kind of cool.
It
But
is.
I was out there and I was careful to kind of stomp where the just kind of where it would crack in so that
Mhm.
I wouldn't slip anywhere. And then wherever I stomped, it was really easy to peel up the whole sheet of ice and reveal the powdery snow underneath. And um, yeah, it's I don't think anyone knows how to walk on ice, but you have ways to like make the ice go away. Cat litter, sand is probably better than cat litter though, but we don't have sand to sprinkle all over. We don't have that stuff on hand. We do have cat litter here. We probably need the cat litter boxes.
I think they say salt too, right? The salt breaks up the ice or something. I don't know.
We do have some salt. So we're just being kind of careful. A friend came over last night with firewood. Their power came back on much earlier than ours did. Ours came back on maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. They came over with firewood and a charger that we could use to charge our cell phones.
That's
And
nice.
yeah, um,
Yeah, and for us, we don't know anyone where we live, so we were just kind of like on our own. So that's why we decided to go to a hotel because we didn't even have a camping stove. We didn't have anything. We didn't have a way to heat water. We didn't have a way to heat food. And the kids were cold and I just didn't want to be stuck here with no food or warmth. So we ended up going to the hotel and I actually waited in line at a restaurant for over an hour to get food.
oh wow. We haven't gone anywhere. We haven't left our house. The roads are dangerous. They're icy and
Yeah, yeah,
one
it's
thing
the conditions are worse where you are than they are where I am right now, especially on the road wise.
one thing that I didn't even really realize is that Texas roads are made for heat. They're not made for ice or rain or snow, and then we don't have snow tires on top of that. So it's not just
Yeah,
that no one can drive in this stuff, but it's just that it's
it,
literally
it,
slippery. Our roads are more slippery than the roads up in the north because
it's
they're
the
built for the
infrastructure.
heat, to expand with the heat. And that's why even when it rains, the roads are really dangerous
Mhm.
here. But when it's icy, but then anywhere, ice is just you can't control your car on ice. You can't control your feet on ice. You just ice is it'll take you down.
Yeah,
And so no, we're not used to it. We're not used to this. We weren't prepared for this because the thing that made the power go down, I think there were power plants that got whole power plants got knocked down, and I remember seeing images of a frozen power plant. Did that actually happen?
yeah. David actually got sent a picture of the refinery too, and it's like all the pipes were frozen with like these giant icicles. Some guys that were working sent pictures. I can put the picture here so everyone can see it. But David got David got some pictures from in his group chat, and it just looks crazy. Um, so how they're blaming wind turbines, but even natural oil and refineries that produce those you know
So yeah,
resources are also
coal.
yeah.
Yeah,
From
I
my
heard it.
understanding is that the wind turbines were actually performing at a higher rate.
I'm not sure, but do have to point something out is that we feel really lucky because we have a gas stove, a gas range. If we didn't have a gas range, we wouldn't have been able to boil snow. We wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to heat up mason jars.
Yeah.
Um, our other sister, she said that I could come stay with her. She has power. Her power never got cut off. Her
And
water never got cut off.
she lives in a bougie part of town, doesn't she? Like, wouldn't the
It
area?
doesn't matter. Well, no, she lives near a hospital. So,
Mm,
and I got to talk to her yesterday for a little bit after I charged my phone the second time. So yesterday when I was charging my phone, I did it a little earlier, and I heard an NPR article mention that Texas wide scale had no power. And I assumed that there were just pockets like your neighborhood and my neighborhood and maybe the neighborhood next to us that didn't have power. And so that was my assumption, is that we just had pockets of no power.
mm.
And I didn't realize that they were planned a rotating blackout and then they just like failed to rotate. Okay, I don't know why, but they failed to rotate. So they just decided that we don't get to have power. And I thought the same thing as you. I thought, well, maybe the rich people do. And we all assume that the governor gets power and, important people do. But some of
Well,
my friends,
I
some of
heard
our, don't,
downtown
some
Austin,
of,
downtown San Antonio, downtown Houston, those areas never lost power. So if they're able to keep
right.
downtown area full of
The
power,
high the local high school kept its stadium lights on the whole time. And it was kind of fun to look in our neighborhood group because they were like, well, it's great that while all the rest of us are freezing in our houses, that the high school stadium can keep their lights on. How great for them. And I'm like loving.
it's just really helping the community morale. It's really helping boost the school spirit.
So I was loving that today because I didn't get to see any internet or any of this until today. But yesterday I talked to my mom. I mentioned that she never, so she lost her power too, and she spent the whole day running that we spent in here just kind of, I don't know what we were doing. She spent it running around getting a generator hooked up and borrowing space heaters and staying warm with the generator and 4 space heaters. So that's where she was at, and she invited me to her house, and our other sister invited me to their house. But we've got 2 cats plus senior dog and a senior cat, so we've got 3 cats and a dog, 2 of them senior, and we just decided that it was for the best to stay here and make it work. And like we piled ourselves up, like I said, with blankets. We used mason jars, and we made it work.
Well,
Uh,
I saw this life hack, which is, and it can come in handy. I actually want to go out and buy what I need to do this if I ever need this again. It's you use bricks to kind of build like a
yes.
base, and then you put 2 bricks on the side, and then you take the little tea light candles and you light them, and then you put a terracotta pot on top that's upside down, and it'll heat up the whole room, and it's
So,
safe as long as you're doing
is it safe though?
smart about it.
Is it safe though? Because some people said it was dangerous. So I don't want to say that it's safe. I feel like we need. Are you sure it's safe? Have you?
I mean,
Be careful if you do
I'm
this.
not okay. Yeah, if you're doing this at home, definitely don't leave it unsupervised, and do it at your
Yeah.
own risk. Discretion. Your discretion is advised.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw what
but
you're talking about, and our chimney is dirty, and that's why we can't start a fire in our fireplace. Unfortunately, I wish
you
we'd
have a
got it swept.
yeah. I think that anyone who has a fireplace, like that's definitely good. Who knew that we would need fireplaces in Texas? But
I know. Almost every apartment I've ever lived in, I just clean my fireplace out and I put candles in there, and that's what I use it for. But I
yeah,
have used. Sometimes you use it just for fun or because they're
once
pretty.
or
But
twice here or there, maybe just because you want to enjoy having a fireplace because you have one. But I mean, now it's like, man, now I want a fireplace.
we have one, and I did some shopping for a chimney sweep. Um, a while back, a bat flew in through our fireplace, so we closed the flue and we taped up a screen over it so that nothing can fly in. We know bats have made nests up in there. We don't know what else could be living in there, so I wanted to get it cleaned out, but I didn't actually I never set the appointment. I shopped and I started leaning toward one, but didn't go through the final phase of actually sealing the deal. So chimney hasn't been swept, and we're concerned that like we don't think anything's in there right now, but we are concerned that if there's like remnants of a nest, that perhaps it could start a fire. There was a house fire in Houston. And one of the things I saw on the news, so today I finally got, yesterday Dawn tells me, our other sister tells me that it's all over Texas, and some of her friends are wealthy. So because I asked her, I said, "What about your friends? Do they have power?" And one of her wealthiest friends in the wealthiest neighborhoods had no power. So it's not a class war.
How long?
I don't know. I don't know.
Just curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw some people who were like losing their mind over losing their power for 4 hours. And I was like, it does suck because 4 hours is long enough for your house to get really cold.
So
But some people were left with no power for 55 hours. And that,
yeah,
at that
even
point, it's like, is this
well.
even legal?
So here's the thing.
No.
They said yesterday that they'd restored power to 500,000 houses. My friend down the street, she got her power back, but we didn't get ours back yet. That was yesterday was Tuesday. Um, and then they said this morning that 600,000 houses have had their power restored. And I think 2.5 million or something like that, 2 point something million people still need their power restored. So there are still a lot of people without power. I don't know whose those people are. They're not us. We also noticed that when we looked out the back window when our power was off, the shopping center where Target and a lot of other shopping
Had
business,
power.
yeah, yeah, we could see the lights on over there. We could see the overhead lights, the street lights, and we could see that they had power.
Mhm.
But
The Dollar
then
General
now,
across the street, their light, there somehow the store didn't have power, or maybe the store just shut down. But somehow, when we didn't have power, their sign had power the whole time, and I was like, "Why is the Dollar General sign on at 3 a.m. when we're freaking freezing here?"
it was cold. We were freezing. I was running around the house yesterday. I put a scarf on and my hat on, and I started just like running. We have a kind of a circular plan, so I started running laps around
Yep.
the circle of our house, just running and running because it's like I need to warm up. I need to warm up, and I did warm up. But it's like, but I'm wearing a scarf and a hat, and we were sleeping in our hats, and it was. And my cat nearly froze to death. Poor baby. We didn't let her sleep in there the second night. And I think I would say that I lost my power at like Sunday at 3 a.m. And then we got it back Tuesday at 3 a.m. So we had no power for 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
And on the coldest night of the vortex, no power. Well, actually, did we get it back on? No, yeah, we had no power. The coldest night of the vortex is the night that had my poor little baby cat trembling. And I wish that I'd thought to make her sleep in the bathroom before that, but we didn't think of that until the next day.
I want to show you something though, really quick. I want
And
screen share because I want you to
so I
just read this. Uh,
sure. So I spent a good 2 hours this morning trying to figure out what's going on.
I just
Um,
want you to see this because ERCOT, they're claiming that this is on the utility companies. So they're claiming that this is AEP Texas. They posted this yesterday, and
what
so
is a what are
AEP is a utilities company. They're the here in at least in the area where I am. They cover a lot of areas. It's mostly South Texas, but they when the electricity goes out, they're the ones who send the guys, the linemen, they call them, to go out and repair the lines and get the power back on. But
okay?
this is what AEP says. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's long, but I want to focus on this one part where they say, for the most part, our system remains intact. These outages are not due to transmission and distribution damage on our system, which is why you do not see trucks rolling and crews making repairs to restore power. AEP is waiting to receive permission from ERCOT to restore power. So they're telling me That they purposely left my family without power for 37 hours. That was done on purpose. That's what they're saying right here, right? That's what I understood when I read that the first time.
You were purposely left without.
It
Yes,
wasn't
this
it
was
was
on purpose.
it wasn't out of their control. It was totally under their control the whole time.
Yeah.
They were just waiting for permission.
So I listened to an interview of the ERCOT CEOs. They actually have a Q&A on YouTube that you can watch. And one of the things I recall them saying, I actually feel like I didn't gain a whole lot from watching them at all, really. I just, except that I wish that it was someone else in charge, but then other than them. But that was the only impression I got.
The challenge that those transmission providers have faced with this event is because it's been so extensive and the outages required to maintain system stability while we got so much generation off the system have been such that when you give such a large obligation to these transmission utilities, it's difficult for them to move them, to have them in one place but not the other, but just because of the quantity of the megawatts that are needed to be reduced and their need to serve critical care facilities that aren't subject to rotating outages. And
what they were saying is that they said that it's harder to shut power off and turn it on than they thought it would be. So like it's much easier just to turn it off and leave it off and just ignore everyone for a little while than it is to actually practice the incremental 40 minutes here, 40 minutes there, 40 minutes here thing.
Yep.
That it was just easier to do it the way they did it. And so that's why they did it that way. They told us they were going to do it one way, and then they did it a different way.
The internet too.
Yes, we had no internet. I couldn't even get cellular internet.
So that's the second issue, is that they cut the internet in the areas that were experiencing no power. And I am a firm believer that that was a way to silence us. We're in the cold, we're pissed as hell, and now you're taking Facebook away from me. I was pissed.
I know, we couldn't go to our neighborhood Facebook sites and complain to each other. And then I went in and I saw all my neighbors that have been in the neighborhood website complaining all week. And I'm like, I missed out on my complaining with my neighbors, or at least lurking while my neighbors complain. And one of my neighbors complained today and said, will we ever get our water back? And I wanted to say, no, never. So this is what I've got. You wanted to say something?
No, well, that's all I wanted to say, is that AEP is basically saying that they just decided to cut it, and that's why we weren't seeing anybody repairing anything, because there was nothing to repair. They just decided that we could go without power. How is that legal? Because I'm sorry, ERCOT stands for electrical, what is it? It stands for Electric Reliability Council of Texas, right? So where's the reliability? They need to take some accountability for leaving elderly. My grandma is in her 80s and she still doesn't have power. She's gone like 3 days now and she doesn't have power. She's in her 80s, almost 90 years old, and they're going to leave this woman in her home with no power. Luckily, my mom went to go pick her up and she's staying with my mom, and my mom still has power. But if my grandma didn't have anyone, what would happen then?
My neighborhood is a neighborhood of retirees, and not very far from here, we have an assisted living community, all without power for about 48 hours. About as long as we've been without.
That's awful.
Everyone. Our whole town has been without power, and except for the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, because we thought about a hotel, but we're not going to go with our pet situation. We can't. But would a hotel even have power? But we didn't realize that this was an intentional thing because we had no access to the internet. And then my sister told me, our other sister told me yesterday, that it was a planned thing and that this was everywhere. And then today I've gotten to catch up and see that they did, and that they planned on doing it as a rolling thing, but they decided that that was too hard, so they just didn't. They didn't roll it.
A lot of people were making the point that if Texas can supply enough power to its citizens, during the summer when it gets above 100 degrees and everyone's cranking their AC up or down to make it cold in their house, we don't experience power outages, but then it gets cold and we're heating our houses and now it's too much.
We have the infrastructure for the heat because we always have the heat. We have the
Yeah.
heat every year. It's getting worse and worse, and I don't know if we are going to be able. I don't know when the heat's going to get to the point where we aren't ready to handle that. We should be on the lookout for that too, because we all will eventually get there.
Summers are getting worse, the winters are getting worse.
Yeah, climate change in general is just creating more and more of these disasters, and so
And
we're not.
yeah,
Our roads are built for the heat. Our roads can barely tolerate rain, and they definitely don't. And we don't have snowplows. Well, I mean, I think we do a little bit, but not very much. And they don't treat the streets the way that they do in the north.
We also live in a state where the politicians are avid climate change deniers and they love non-renewable resources. So they are using this whole thing to push non-renewable resources, which further worsen the condition of the environment, which makes the winter storm
problems
and the summer heat worse. But then they also want to deny that there's climate change and not invest in the infrastructure to keep us warm in the winter and cold and comfortable in the summer. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And they're the wind turbines are the problem. It's like, nobody, you're the problem. You, sir, you individually are the problem. You and all of your beliefs need to get out of here. I wish that we had voted Greg Abbott out this last election, but if this doesn't get him out of here, I don't know what will. I've had enough of him. He needs to just leave.
I love that you said that. It's so cute. You, sir, are the problem.
Yes. John Cornyn was just going on Twitter. And I was like, no, sir, you on Twitter in your warm home, we all know that you're sitting in a warm lit up house. Okay. So you need to get off of Twitter and shut the fuck up, because we are the ones that are suffering. We know, and we know that it's you and this logic that has put us in this freaking hellhole of
you're not gonna
Texas. Who's ever heard of Texas freezing over? It's crazy.
So that's the thing, though, is that Texas doesn't freeze over, and that's why our grid can't handle it, because a lot of power plants froze. And they shut down. See that Abbott immediately was blaming ERCOT, and I saw an interview with Abbott where he's basically like, it was ERCOT, look at them. And then there is a Q&A with ERCOT where they're like, well, yeah, we don't, I mean, why do we have to do this? It's funny because when I looked in the YouTube comments, it was like, they look awfully warm and cozy, and they did. But they probably needed to be somewhere where there was power to be able to do a Q&A. But I mean, we know that the power distribution, it hasn't been done fairly. There's no question about, has this been done in a way that's fair? No. Businesses have had power. Hospitals have had power. That's a good thing. The hospitals, good. I'm glad that they kept power there. But an assisted living community got their power cut off?
There's one right next to us too. There's an assisted living that's just right next door, and they were also without power as long as we were. So I was also thinking about how are they keeping the people warm and comfortable? I mean, how are they feeding them? How are they taking care of them? Some people might be on life support or need some type of machines to keep them breathing.
There are centers for those people, but if you don't have access to internet and your phone's dead, and how do you find out where to go? You don't.
Or you don't have someone to drive you, or the weather. I mean, the condition wasn't, some places wasn't safe to drive, so you're stuck. You're literally stuck.
We fixed our phone. We charged our phones in our car, but not everyone has a car. Not everyone has a way to find these things out. So yeah, a lot of people got high and dry because there was no warning. Your power was cut off before the message went out, and then I got the message that we were going to have rolling power outages, and then my power got cut off for 48 hours. they could have done this much more fairly. They could have actually rolled them, even if they needed to roll them for like 8 hours or 4 hours or something like that. But, and then, or they could have just said, hey, your power is going to be out for, it could be out potentially for until Friday. So that's what I was hearing, is possibly until Friday. Some of these people, there's still over 2 million houses that need power, and they might not have power until Friday. So this is still really bad. And so I found Abbott blaming, not really taking responsibility, blaming ERCOT, who are sort of absorbing the responsibility, but in an odd way. And this is what I've done. So once I started today, just the amount of time I've had to do research, I'm just going to read what I wrote. So from what I've been able to find, because I haven't had a chance to do a whole lot, I feel like there is room for more research, but we haven't had internet that long. So we've had internet. I spent a couple of hours looking into things, as you have as well, and then catching up with people and charging stuff up, and just kind of making, kind of appreciating that we have reality, also getting more snow to melt because we still don't have water. So catching up, let's see, to me, it seems like it's a lack of accountability. Oh, and I said I was upset about the lack of accountability because I posted something in social media saying that Iceland has wind turbines, and they were blaming the wind turbines, and the wind turbines did freeze. That's true. They froze and they weren't working, but they only account for 10% of our power. And our politicians are pointing the finger at renewables, but that's only 10% of our power. Renewables wasn't the problem. The problem was that ERCOT, which I guess is an organization designed to manage things, didn't manage things in a way that kept people from freezing and at all. So that was part of the problem, accountability. And then they're trying to blame renewables first. And so from what I've learned, what happened is that because our energy providers, except for the city of Austin in Texas, is a unique place where the city actually provides the electricity, but all the other electricity providers are for profit, including the wind farms. Those are for profit. So we have for-profit electric providers, including wind power, mostly coal, gas, and nuclear plants, but some of them were wind, but most of them are coal, gas, and nuclear plants. And the reason that they froze up is because they did not winterize. Because why? Because they don't want to pay for it. That's the reason. They didn't want to put up the money, because like I heard someone saying, like, the odds of it getting bad enough they need to winterize or in Texas is so rare, why bother? So that's the reason for the problems. It's the reason that the energy needs to be distributed. The reason the energy was not distributed fairly or rolled over or whatever, that's its own rabbit hole that I don't know yet. Except that ERCOT just decided it was too hard.
Weird to just do it the way they did it.
Now, instead of refunding out, if we're not going to get a refund for the days we were without power, we're going to be charged extra because they're going to say that increasing demand. So basically, we're going to have to pay for them to repair their stuff that they didn't do the maintenance of. They're going to make us pay for that by billing us more. And they're saying, but we should be getting refunds, but we're going to be getting higher bills.
Yeah,
and then the other problem
that went spoiled, and for the damages that were caused,
Right. Yeah, and hotel bills, none of that. So, but yet we're called customers, and I'll come back to that in a second. But we're customers, yet this is how customers get treated. We're supposed to fit the bill. If we're customers, we don't fit the bill for your poor business practices. That's on you. So there's no competition. There's like probably a lack of competition problem, a lack of regulation. That's really the problem. There's no regulations, and without being regulated, they're not forced to winterize, so they don't winterize because they don't. So that to me seems to be the problem. They just didn't want to spend the money. The other part of the problem is that we have our own grid. Texas has its own grid, and I think this is kind of becoming more commonly known now after this event. All the news channels are talking about it, but so we don't share a grid. So when we need, because our neighboring states are also in blizzards and having power outages, but because they share a grid with half the country, they're able to borrow power and not suffer the way that we are, having to basically live in freezing. Our houses went to freeze. I think our house went down to 35 at least. I think it was 35 on Sunday night. On Monday night, I think it went even lower than that. Sunday night it was 15 outside, and Monday night it was 0. And I didn't look at how cold it got on that night. I should have, but I didn't. It was cold in our house. We were freezing, very cold.
It really
Heating
was.
up mason jars, but other states, they were able to get power. So that was another one of the problems, and the reason that they decided to do that. So should Texas hook up with other states? I mean, if you ask me, we should hook up with other states and with Mexico. And we should start collaborating more with Mexico, like a lot more with the Mexican government, on how we're going to deal with climate change and climate crisis. We should be working together with Mexico. And then Jonathan told me that one of his friends has friends in El Paso, and then El Paso is not under ERCOT. For whatever reason, ERCOT doesn't manage their power. And so they have not lost power in El Paso. They all have power. And his friends went there to just stay there.
Wow.
So, but that's kind of surprising to me, because if the main problem is the failure to winterize, but again, okay, so the problem is the failure to winterize. So we do have a power problem, but then it's managing the problem by rolling blackouts and then not rolling them, but just cutting all our power off, except for the businesses.
There's definitely more to learn. There's definitely a lot to look into. And I really hope that the people of Texas are looking into this, are trying to figure out who, is responsible for this. I truly believe that Greg Abbott did play a major role in this failure. He is now trying to point the finger at ERCOT, even though he himself appoints three commissioners to the Public Utility Commission, which is, I guess, what oversees ERCOT. And so I also saw that a third of the members of the board for ERCOT actually don't even live in Texas. So I just there's a lot of shady things happening within this entire story that's just very strange. And it's upsetting to see how many people have really suffered. I mean, it wasn't fun going through all this. And I know that my conditions were not as bad as other people. And, there's, like you said, there's people with animals. There's people who had lizards, turtles, fish that were dying because they weren't able to provide them the heat source that they needed. They weren't able to keep their animals safe and comfortable and in the conditions that are required. And then there's people on life support. There's people with newborn babies. They can't heat a bottle for their baby. I mean, it's scary.
And I've also seen people that have had power, got power back last night, and they got their power shut off. So I don't even know how much longer we have with our power. We might lose it. I've got all the sources of light near me. I found this one the other day. I was looking, and we stored it in somewhere I wasn't expecting, above the stove, but it's a pretty nice little thing. I like it.
Cool. I like that too. That's great.
Yeah. So this is my little thing. And Jonathan gets this one. So we each have our own, but now I've got them both. So if the power goes off, I'm gonna have to go rescue Jonathan. Yeah, this is a mismanagement, and it's got a lot of pieces to break down. One thing that did, from my whole listening to the CEOs of ERCOT talk, which I know it's a nonprofit, so I'm kind of curious about. I don't know enough about it. It's something we should look into. But he had said that something about letting our customers down. He referred to us as customers, which I guess we are customers. We pay electric bills, but it just feels wrong. Like we're citizens and we're being let down by the infrastructure of our civilization, like the things that give us civilized life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The system as whole that is broken if it can't provide electricity to us during a storm. When things are freezing and people's lives are at stake and pets' lives are at stake, what is the point of society if
And also
not?
not even to warn us to say, hey, go out and get food, go out and get candles, go out and get flashlights, go out and make sure you have batteries, you have water, make sure your car has gas. Because there is even like in the lower part of Texas in the Rio Grande Valley, I saw that they were completely out of gas and people are struggling to find gas, and that in itself is crazy. um, but there is actually a mayor, I don't know if you heard about him, from Colorado City, who just resigned today because this morning he decided to go on Facebook and post something really crazy. Did you hear about it?
I think so, but go ahead and fill me in.
Okay, I can share my screen so you can see the post. I have it right
I think
here.
Jonathan told me about it.
Okay, yeah, he says, "Let me hurt some feelings while I have a minute. No one owes you are your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim, it's your choice. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing. I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout." But he just went on to just complain. If you don't have electricity, you step up and come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe. If you have no water, you deal without and think outside of the box to survive and supply water to your family. If you are sitting at home in the cold because you have no power and are sitting there waiting for someone to come rescue you because you're lazy, is direct result of your raising. Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. And I love how he puts parish like a parish hall, like going to church. Like, bro, where did you go to school? Texas? Folks. And then he put, folks, God has given us the tools to support ourselves in times like this. This is sadly a product of a socialist government where they feed people to believe that the few will work and others will become dependent for handouts. Am I sorry that you have been dealing without electricity and water? Yes, but I'll be damned if I'm going to provide for anyone that is capable of doing it themselves. We have lost sight of those in need and those that take advantage of the system and meshed them into one group. Bottom line, quit crying and looking for a handout. Get off your ass and take care of your own family. Bottom line, don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. And that's why the people of Colorado City voted this man mayor. Thank you, Tim. Is direct result of your raising. Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. And I love how he puts parish like a parish hall, like going to church. Like, bro, where did you go to school? Texas?
He apologized, he resigned, and his wife was fired.
I feel like that's a little bit far for
Firing
them.
his wife? Yeah.
Firing his wife. She wasn't, I mean, now they're both jobless. Like, he was an idiot for going and posting that, especially as a mayor. Like, it's one thing to be an idiot as a citizen and spew all this crap. And, and he was probably in his house, he had a generator, whether or not he was affected by the light situation, he probably had a generator, he was probably warm on Facebook or on Twitter, comfortably posting in his nice toasty warm home about how people are lazy and want handouts because they're cold, and asking, why has my state failed me? It has nothing to do with people being lazy.
And,
Also,
and
why didn't they warn us? Why didn't you warn us to go out and get the things we need then, Tim?
but handouts? Excuse me. Would you
Yeah.
like to see my electric bill, sir, that I pay every month?
Exactly. What is that? That was another thing I saw people saying is, you think electricity is free?
We're paying for this. We're customers. We would like a refund.
Yes. I would like
So,
to.
but honestly, I would like to see electricity be socialized. I think it should be
I
free.
agree. I think internet,
Maybe you could have caps, and make people pay for an excessive amount of usage.
or maybe have, private companies that you can go to, but also the option of a public, um, government sponsored
Sure.
program. Kind of like with internet. There's a lot of places that have like government Wi-Fi, but then you can also just get your own provider for internet for like a better service if that's what you want. But
Or
it's the premium
additional or
service.
add-on.
Yeah. It's like a
Yeah, so like if the government gives me, like 200 rams or whatever they call it,
kilowatts per hour, I think.
kilowatts on my cell phone, yeah, then I can pay extra another company to give me more. And
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't know enough, and that's something I'd like to learn. I'm looking into wanting to learn more about economics, so that I can actually make arguments that are more sound and more knowledgeable, because I don't have that knowledge, so I want to learn that. Um, and yeah, so like we do feel we wanted to share as quickly as possible like what we're going through. It's getting cold and icy. It's like the mayor
Calling his constituents lazy for being cold.
and the
Oh,
government.
bro, I'm sorry I have no legs and can't go to the store right now. Like, what do you mean? There's people out there that really have no other, like, they don't have a way to do anything or go anywhere. If you don't have gas in your car or you don't have your phone charged, like, what the hell else are you supposed to do?
And we agree in compassionate government, and that's, I
Yeah,
think I want to see compassionate government. I want to see government that takes responsibility. Leadership is about taking responsibility,
admitting the wrongdoings
but
and working towards being better.
even if it's not your fault, if you're a leader, you take responsibility. That doesn't mean admitting fault.
Taking
It means
accountability
it
for
means this thing is messed up. I'm not going to talk about. I was very upset to see that while we're still without power, Abbott is out there blaming people, trying to blame ERCOT, trying to blame natural renewable energy.
that
So he's
really,
like,
really made me mad
he's
too.
out there saying, whose fault is it? We're still without power. Fix it. We can analyze whose fault it was later. Right now, what's the solution? But he has no solution. He only has blame to throw around.
And
And
he
so
didn't
no
feel the
one,
sense of urgency because he's warm and toasty at home.
so it's very disheartening to see our leadership coming at us with throwing around blame, but offering no solution. Let's
But
wrap this up with some
it's
positives.
a crazy experience, but I feel proud of myself for getting through it, and especially getting through it with the kids. I feel like you keeping your animals warm is a very big feat. I think you did great. I mean, I have seen like a lot of people and what they did to keep themselves warm, and it's incredible. I saw a friend who had collected her drip water in cups. She had tons of cups on her. She posted a picture of just all the cups on her counter that she was keeping there so that way they could have water if they ran out of water. And you know, I saw neighbors that had their they had taken their grills outside and started a fire on the grill and they were cooking their food outside.
There was a point on Monday where it was warmer outside than it was inside.
Wow.
It might have been Tuesday, but I think it was actually on Tuesday. It was warmer outside than it was in our house. It was on Tuesday because Monday was the coldest
Crazy.
night. So, yeah, I know. And it was really cold outside, but our
Yeah.
house hadn't warmed up enough yet. So
Mhm.
that was the day that the animals were trembling and shivering, the senior ones, and I had to pet them down and keep them warm. And yes, I think it was really smart that y'all put your food in the ice. And another thing that I think I'm really grateful for is my friend who came over with the battery for us to charge our cell phones and firewood. So like that we have that community, we have that friendship. And I think a lot of people are trying to help each other out.
Yeah.
Once I finally got access to the internet today, since I haven't had access to it since Monday morning, um, I saw that neighbors were posting pictures of like people making tents out of tables and hunkering down underneath the tables to stay warm. And even just using, if you have a tent, using a tent because it traps the heat.
Mhm.
So people have been very creative
Making like
about
blanket
staying
fort-
warm.
little blanket fort like when we did when we were kids. keep
Yeah.
yourself.
So we are surviving, and we're doing the best that we can and sticking together as community best we can. But we've been cut off from information for a couple of days, and we've had to sit in freezing temperatures in our homes for at least a day, and some people are still going through that. And it's pretty cold and pretty different. It's a new experience, and it's enough to like, I have to remember COVID, and everyone's who's inviting me over to their homes, I haven't been in their home since March because of COVID. And I'm like considering going there
Yeah.
for protection, but am I going to wear a mask at my sister's house the whole time I'm there? She won't want to have to wear a mask in her own home. My mother doesn't want to wear a mask. So that's another issue. And the people going into the warm-up facilities, I hear they're kind of getting full. And so it's been a wild experience with the idea, the visual of your toddlers bundled up in their snowsuits going over to a hotel. It's precious.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet they look really cute.
Snow, like Maya has these snow overalls and Emma has these snow pants, and then they had their coats on, and it was just crazy. Even like that, we were cold. I was cold. I had like 3 pairs of pants on. I had like two jackets and like a sweatshirt and a shirt, like a long sleeve, and I was cold. My hands were cold. I was so cold. And we were trying to pack, but it's like when you're that cold, it's hard to like think. It's like hard to just it's hard to think because you're just like, damn, it's so cold in here and there's no escaping it. There's no going inside to get warm because you are inside.
I keep forgetting that I have power, so I'll go into my bathroom and it's dark. I'll go in there dark. Oh wait, no, the light works.
Can use the light again.
And I'm not wearing a scarf, and I'm not wearing the thick sweater that I had on earlier, and I've had a hat on, and I've been wearing gloves pretty much for the past 2 days. So right now I'm not wearing any of those. We are warming our house up maybe a little warmer than it needs to be because we're terrified of losing it again and having my cat get freeze again. But I think the freezing weather is now over, so at least for our area. So once the house gets warm enough again, I think we should be good. We won't have another night. We might get cold again if we lose power, but it won't be to where I'm risking my cat's health and life level of cold. So
yeah, the weather is getting a little better outside.
Yeah, we just thought people might want to see and hear a little bit of experiences from people living in an odd and, I don't know, strange times.
Yeah.
Some firsthand experience.
Some progressive Texans stuck in this frozen over heck hole, as I heard earlier. Someone said when heck froze over.
When Texas freezes over.
Yeah, basically, I mean, geez, who's ever heard of that? But we realized that there were some issues with the state government, and now we really realize, and all together, the community banding together and getting through this.
Yeah, in spite of having our Lone Star power grid.
Yeah, memorable.
But I call it the Lone Star power grid. I don't really know what it's called, but it's Texas, all Texas, our own little thing.
It was a very memorable Valentine's Day.
I mean, there's a lot I love about Texas. I mean, we're from here. It's a good shape for a state. It's a really good shape.
Iconic, pretty iconic. I have a shirt that says F y'all, I'm from Texas. And it's just so funny. And thank you for watching this episode of the Sister Sit Down State of the Emergency State. What is it? Emergency?
State of Disaster.
State of Disaster series. Hopefully we won't ever have to make another episode of this, but you never know, I guess.
We probably will.
when you're living in Texas. So if you
Go Cowboys.
if you also
Go
live in Texas, leave a comment down below and let us know about your experiences. We would love to hear them.
And if you're not in Texas and you want to ask any questions, let us know. Ask away.
Yes, definitely. And if you're not already subscribed, don't forget to subscribe.